Let's get this started. Let's go. We should be audio-wise working okay. Everything's reading okay, so I'll get the thumbs up in a second. But let me make sure everything's good. Don't have this, and then we're good to go. So, all right. So let's get started. So this week, or I guess this month, right? We're moving into a new topic, right? So this month we're doing color keys. So the whole month of February, we're going to be covering composition, lighting, color, and then refine, right? And refine is an interesting one because there's like with a color key, it's not exactly a finished painting, right? It's a kind of a medium-ish level painting, even a loose painting, oftentimes. So I'm going to show you like kind of where we take things and how we can do that effectively, right? Because when we do a color key, it's not just one painting. It's, you know, a whole bunch of different ones that kind of all link together in some sort of way. And we'll talk about that as we kind of get into this month's topic. But before we do that, I do want to jump into the stuff that we did last month, right? Because we did props, right? we did a design for this camera. The whole point was to kind of do a continuation of last year, 2023, like the last half of 2023's, designs, right? We kind of did something there, and I kind of want to just round it off with a small prop, right? So ultimately, this is what I came up with, right? Pretty chill, really, very like, you know, it's really not that far from where we had. Actually, let me see if I can open the PSD, and we can get a better view of like what I actually did here, right? Boom. It's a big file, so. Let's see. Oh, let me see. Let me stream in Discord. Sorry, man. I got you, Ramik. Screen share, screen one. Go live. There you go. Sick. All right. So, this is the image that I finished, right? Ultimately, it's not really that far off from what we had, right? Let me just show you kind of where it came from, right? There's little things here and there. It's very model-like in this scenario, right? It's a little bit smaller. And this is the same vehicle that we had from like the previous or last year, the end of last year's stream, right? Because this camera was supposed to be, you know, a safari kind of car camera that was kind of attached to the side. He would sit there and he'd kind of like be able to see what he needs to see, right? So this is the model that we spit out, and this is how far we took it, right? Little things here and there, really not that big a deal, because the whole point of this, and especially because I did a lot of it in 3D, I didn't really need to worry too much about it. But what I did need to do was a couple main things, right? Really just making sure that we have, you know, an understanding of like the kind of personality that we're trying to hit. Because before, you know, we just got plain, you know, just blank face of a model, right? And then now, you know, just trying to emphasize some of that hand, right? Where you have that kind of shoulder area here, the kind of top of the arm, and then the kind of bottom of the arm, and then the hand kind of grabbing that handle right there, right? It might be a little difficult to see, but you know, you get the idea. And then from here, just a lot of like weathering and like things, because this is an old camera, like we talked about. This is a this is a spirit that kind of like occupied this camera, right? It just kind of took over, and then it kind of ate the cell phone that was like nearby, right? And then because of that, he kind of gained some new technology, and we have like turnarounds and stuff to kind of show what that's all about. But really trying to show that weathering, really trying to squeeze in like any of these like half circles, because you know, like we talked about in the previous weeks, right? I had that Pokeball motif, and every chance that I got, I tried to squeeze in that half circle idea, right? With that Pokeball, right? Red, white, clearly, right? Little things like that. Every chance I got with a lot of this stuff, where like there's even like this panel here, you can kind of see that line right there. It goes onto the side, and then it feels like a Pokeball. There's some stuff on the back. Even the color palette that we chose has that same kind of semblance to it. You know what I mean? So little things like that. It's you're trying to find that like texture slash the details and little things like that to really make this feel, you know, like you designed it on purpose. You know what I mean? So this was kind of how it turned out. You know, maybe I could take it a little bit further, maybe not, who knows. But this is basically what I would turn in. And generally speaking, in most of what I do, it'd probably be approved, or maybe like little things here and there might need to be adjusted. You know what I mean? So nothing really too crazy. But you know, we can kind of see like how that goes about, right? And something that I really want to show in this entire process, because it is extra work to do a view like this, right? Because, you know, why not just spit it out in an ortho view, right? And the reason that I wanted to show it this way is because it sells so much more. When you look at this, you know, as a moment, you can kind of see the car, you can see the environment a little bit. I didn't really spend that much time on it because I had the pieces from the other paintings, right? So a lot of it was just kind of like I was able to just, you know, just slap it in there and then add some brush strokes on top to kind of make it fit in a little bit nicer, right? So the reason that we did this is because it sells a little bit more, right? It looks better. It has a deeper story to it. It has a meaning to it that whenever you're pitching this to an art director or a lead or whoever else, right, it kind of tells their story a little bit further versus something like this, right? Because when you see something like this is oftentimes the main, I guess, view that people will give us when we're trying to do like props and stuff, right? Because it's like, oh, design a prop. Cool. Here's a 3/4 view of it. And it's fucking boring, you know? It looks okay, but it's not quite there, right? It's not in context. It doesn't have the meanings and the attitude and the design and the feeling that this one does. It's almost the same view, right? It's basically the same camera angle, really not that different. I think this one's a little bit lower. But the whole point is, you know, we want to show the moment, right? Because whenever we're designing props, there's this tendency to want to show everything, right? I designed this prop. I want to show you the kind of whole idea, right? So you kind of pick a better angle, or even do ortho views like this, where it's like, oh, cool, you know, you have all the views, we can see all the pieces, but you can't see the moment. You can't see the story behind it. So what happens is, you know, designs like this, they're fine, but they don't really say anything. And with people that are, you know, making like, you know, creative decisions, people that are, you know, actually putting in money to the product, or your leads, right? They'd rather see this because this says a lot more. Because once this gets approved, right? You're like, oh, snap, look at that. That's, you know, that's amazing. So-and-so, whatever, right? Then you go, cool, let's do a turnaround, because there's a modeler right behind us in production where it's like, okay, send this to whoever needs to make it, essentially. And that's a whole different process. And the reason why, if you're a student, right, I highly recommend focusing on this one, this view, more than this, because you're not actually sending your product to a modeler. You know, the whole idea is whenever you're showing your portfolio, you're showing art directors, you're showing leads, you're showing people that are in kind of management positions that will actually hire you. They're not the ones that are actually making the model. So you want to inspire them with your art. You want to show them like, hey, there's this cool moment, like, oh shit, that's dope. And then the next page is the turnaround. They still want to see that you know what they need in terms of production. They still want to see that you understand what's happening here in a you know, in a production sense. But this is, you don't lead with this. Start here, sell the product, and then show them how it's made. Show them the details, show them the thought that went into it. And that's what's going to get you a lot further than just doing these 2 pages, right? It's a very simple idea, but once you understand what kind of process that you're in when you're like working in production versus applying for jobs, you'll kind of see why this isn't as effective. It's very boring. It doesn't tell story. It's not very inspiring, and it'll probably get flipped by pretty quick. And you might have a lot of ideas to it, but at the end of the day, you know, it doesn't really sell the idea. You know what I'm saying? So just kind of keep that in mind as you're, you know, making your own work. It is extra work to do this, but the ones that do the extra work oftentimes, you know, are the ones that get the jobs. You know what I mean? So, you know, just things to think about. But I did want to show something. I have all my paintings here that we did these past couple months, right? So here's this one. Here's this one. Here's this one. I didn't do a turnaround on the car, but I have the model, right? So who cares? But I wanted to show kind of like where we came from. You know what I mean? It's like, it's cool. I think like, seeing the process and seeing how we designed from like a purely 2D standpoint, right? Because we saw this first one on the top left. All I did was just, I just kind of made some silhouettes, and I kind of spent, the weeks or whatever, kind of bashing it together, doing what I needed to do to make that look good, right? And then from there, we made a model because we needed a car. We needed to kind of show that that detail off. Here, let me move some of this so it's not so distracting. Oops, there we go. We made the car because I wanted to show like, like what it's like when you actually play the game, because you're going to see this giant creature, but then you're also going to be driving around in this kind of cool vehicle, right? Or hopefully, cool, right? And then from there, you're going to be using this prop, right? You're going to interact with the vehicle, and you're going to interact with this prop to shoot, this guy, right? And it's little fun things like that where it kind of still captures the moment of what we need from the game, but also kind of shows a little bit more of like character interaction stuff, right? So hopefully, with these 3 paintings, you can kind of see where I would probably take a project. I know it's been like since freaking like October or some shit like that we kind of like started this, but the whole point is, we would kind of walk through this whole idea, and I kind of did it pretty slow. Hopefully it wasn't like too slow for everybody watching, or hopefully it wasn't too fast. But the whole point is, when I do this, there's a lot of thought that kind of goes into the small pieces, in the way from the way we present to the camera angles that we choose, and hopefully, you come out of it with something half decent. You know what I mean? And that's really all we can ask for, right? So, but cool. Let's see. For the Discord people, was Dave ever able to enter?
I don't think so. I sent him the link to the YouTube.
Let me fix that. Hold on.
Yeah, he said he's having some kind of issues. I don't know what's going on. Like it boots him out immediately or something. But I'll see if I can help him out.
Okay, I'll kind of change his permissions real quick, and then I'll see what happens. All right, man. He's about to get a lot of power that he's not usually allowed to have. Cool.
You start hearing screaming through Hunter's mic.
I know, right? So just let him know I changed his role. He should be able to see something now. If that's not if he's trying to get in. But if not, I have no idea. Maybe reinstall Discord or something. Let's see. All right. So with that in mind, let's start talking about the new topic. Oh, real quick, I did want to kind of mention I wanted to thank all the people that I guess have been participating in the Livestream Plus channel. Right now we're like, I think there's like 15 to 20 people getting feedback every week. I mean throughout the week, but we do a feedback session on Mondays, and some of the work in there is dope. Like just if you're really interested and you want to learn and you want to kind of get better at entertainment design, right? Whatever it is, right? Just art in general, right? I'd love for you to join. The level ups that I'm seeing in that group is huge. Something to understand about these kind of live streams, if you haven't kind of grasped it already, this isn't really like a walkthrough tutorial, right? This isn't like I'm showing you every single detail in terms of painting and kind of explaining step by step. Theoretically speaking, this is purely just for but it's kind of geared towards intermediate to advanced students, right? It's about mindsets, understanding why we do things, and just kind of giving a clearer picture as to how to be a stronger professional. Because in classes, right, and on YouTube as well, you learn a lot of the techniques of like, here's photo bashing, here's drawing, here's painting, but we don't really understand why we do it. Why we do things in the order that we do, because once you show up to work, right, once you finally kind of land that job, it's a nightmare for a long time, right? Because you're like, oh, my teacher didn't teach me that at all. I had no idea we did things that way. And it's little things like that it can really set you back and sometimes get you fired, unfortunately, if the production's like too fast paced for your skill set, right? So hopefully, with these streams, we're kind of diving into some of those thoughts, right? Just understanding like why we do things in the order that we do them, and then why we present things in certain ways, and who's, receiving these paintings, and who's actually, in charge of whatever it is that we're doing, right? So just little things to kind of understand about that. But for the Livestream Plus people, just thank you so much for the hard work. And yeah, we're getting into week or month 2 color keys, right? So let's kill it. So just wanted to kind of show you all that, and then yeah, boom, boom, boom. Let's see. Let's close all of this. I'll probably upload these a little bit later in the Discord or something. So if you want to grab these, if you want to get a closer look at it, you can kind of find it there. So boom, boom. All right. Oh, let's close this one too. I don't need that. All right, so this is week 1, right? Composition, right? Today we're going to be talking about how to, I guess, design a composition that actually means something. Because the first, I guess, thing that we're going to be doing with the color keys, and this isn't standard, right? Because for example, when I was at Netflix, a lot of the compositions that was actually given to us already, right? Because they're from the storyboards. So a storyboard artist would, generally speaking, kind of give us these compositions, or your lead would give it to you from the storyboards, and then we kind of paint those up. So with this, but we don't have storyboard artists, right? So with this first week, I'm gonna kind of generate ideas and kind of show you what I like to think about as I'm creating my compositions, right? Because it's more than just putting something on the rule of thirds. It's more than just kind of showing off the thing. There's a whole story component here that we want to understand how we, go about creating interesting, compelling compositions, right? Am I the best composer in terms of composition? Not really, right? But there are things that I do keep in mind that really do help make your, compositions more and more interesting, right? So I just wanted to break down a couple things. With this color key month, we're going to be doing 5 color keys, right? Probably 5. If I do more, I do more. But generally speaking, we're going to probably, I'm guessing about 5. And then I picked a story to base this off of. And so I picked Little Red Riding Hood. You can pick any story you want. But what I do want to really emphasize here is pick just a simple story. And I'll show you how small of a snippet I actually take from this story. But the whole idea is I just need something to kind of get me started. I'm going to redesign the world. I'm going to redesign the character. It's going to be just kind of loosely based off of the actions that happen inside of that story. Because at the end of the day, right, we're not writers, right? We're not writers. So at the end of the day, we probably shouldn't be focusing too much time on writing our stories out. I'm not saying do or don't, but something that happens a lot is, I'll teach a class and I'll tell them, oh yeah, just figure out a story real quick. And they kind of really dive into the weeds of like, oh yeah, this person betrayed this person, ends up being his sister or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it's just so deep. And it's like, no, man, we're just dude walking down the street. Is he in danger or is he not, right? Is someone watching him? Is he happy? Is he sad? Right? Very simple ideas. Because generally speaking, a lot of these things at work are given to you, right? I usually get a composition, like in terms of when I'm doing color keys. I have a composition, I have color reference, I understand the story point, like what part we are in the story, and I understand like kind of the general beats of that sequence, right? And all of that is given to us from the storyboards, from the directors, from your leads, from your production designer / art directors, right? So really all we're doing is taking all those pieces and making a color key from it. But, we don't have all that. This isn't a real production, right? So we have to make it up. So the first thing is I just took a story from Little Red Riding Hood, nothing crazy, right? And all I really want to do is focus on her journey from her house to grandma's, right? I was thinking maybe the wolf can like attack in the woods instead of like, in the house, so we can kind of get a better story moment there. Like, the wolf's kind of like attacking her or trying to attack her, like on the way before she gets there, right? But the whole idea is she's kind of like, you know, she gets their stuff. In this case, is like wine and cake, which is dope, by the way. If my grandkid brought wine and cake, that'd be sick. But anyway, so she just has the food, and then she's taking it to her grandma to kind of cheer her grandma up, right? Her grandma's sick in this case. So we're just gonna design that moment out, right? We have a couple different things happening, right? We have the fact that she's on this path, and her mom tells her, don't deviate from that path, right? Because, you know, you'll get lost or whatever it is. She does, surprisingly. And then she goes to pick a flower. Wolf goes to grandma's house and essentially eats grandma, right? So in this case, I'm going to be changing the character a little bit. I'm going to be changing the I guess the scenario, right? Not like super changing it, but just adjusting it, little things here and there. And then changing the setting, because, you know, when you think Little Red Riding Hood, right, you think like medieval cottage type thing, right? Very fairy tale book thing, you know what I mean? We're not going to be doing that because, you know, that's very expected, right? So for your story, keep it simple. You can pick a story, a super simple one like this, and then just throw your characters in there. Instead of Little Red Riding Hood, it's your character that you designed, right? That kid or whatever. And then just pick a small section. Her trip from the beginning of the woods to the end of the woods, right? Because when we do color keys, it's for a sequence, right? It's just a small sequence of like, here's the beginning of this and here's the end. It's usually like, oh yeah, they're at this location and these are the color keys for that. Because the way we did it on the production I was on is every kind of sequence would have their own artists, or that at least have their own kind of color signature to it, right? There's a general idea happening. So they would give us 5 or 6 color keys, like 5 to 10-ish, right? And we'd have to kind of just paint those up according to whatever they tell us, right? So just picking a small sequence, the walk in the forest, right? That's the first step. The next thing I'm doing is I picked a location. So surprise, I picked Japan again, right? Because, you know, I'm weird like that, right? So with this in mind, there's this, it's called Yakushima Forest on Yakushima Island. And it's like this cool, like mossy kind of forest. And it just kind of looks kind of ancient, kind of cool looking. You've probably seen this forest before if you've ever typed in like cool forest. But yeah, this is kind of what I'm going to be doing. And of course, if they're in Japan, right? It's a little Japanese kid, right? We'll kind of talk about the details as to how I'm going to be going about designing that. But for now, just kind of understand this is the location and that's the setting, right? I don't really want to go too in depth with, I guess the whole design of the space, right? We're not, I guess, focusing too much on the, I guess, the environment design side of this. What we're really focusing on is understanding how color interacts with a story and how we can, you know, use our sequence to help tell that story, right? So design and stuff kind of taking a back seat compared to last month. But there is still going to be a lot of design in terms of like color and values and things like that, right? So with that in mind, we have the story, we have the setting. Now we're set, right? So really, the first thing I like to do is I like to go to Shot Deck, right? Because like if you know anything about me, Shot Deck carries my career. If you're not using Shot Deck, I don't say you're messing up, but it's life changing. Like when I first found out about it, it's incredible. So what I did was I went to Shot Deck and I was like, cool, this is pretty sick. Let me turn off nudity so we don't get canceled or some shit. But anyway, so we're looking at the first page of Shot Deck, right? The first thing I typed in is actually samurai, and it's cool because it kind of filters out everything that has samurai in it, or I guess leaves everything that has samurais in it. So I'm able to, you know, I guess really find movies and different scenarios, right? You're seeing like, oh, this is like a serene moment. It's a lot calmer, right? A lot higher impact moments, right? You know, things like this too. So what I'm doing here is I'm just looking for inspiration. You know, I saw this and I was like, oh shit, that color grading is pretty cool, right? This kind of foggy, misty, dark, you know, low contrast kind of scene, right? And then just looking for moments, you know what I mean? Like a combat moment, right? Or, you know, cool character moments, right? This guy's clearly losing this fight. If he's not having a good time, right? And then from there, I'm just kind of scrolling around, right? I'm just looking just to see what's cool, looking at old movies, right? Old movies are the best, right? Especially like a lot of like fight scenes and things like that. You can kind of find some cool inspiration. You know, traveling scenes, right? We need a path that this character is gonna be walking down. I don't know. This is actually pretty cool. I'll keep that. Little things like this. And then from here, I typed in forest, right? Because we have, you know, a forest. And so, you know, looking for like lighting scenarios, looking for, you know, camera angles, like look at that. Like what, like when they pick a camera angle like this, why is this so high? You know what I mean? Or why are we so far away from the characters? Same here, where it's like, you know, they're pretty distant, right? There's something about it. I don't know what it is. You know, I haven't seen this movie yet, but you know, it's just something where when we're looking at these scenes, especially like something like this, like, dude, imagine like she's like running away, you know, and like we're at the point of view of the wolf character. You know what I mean? That's actually pretty cool. So see, I'm like just grabbing pictures as we kind of go, and I'm just finding reference. It's either for composition's sake or for color palette or whatever. Anything that oh, I lost that one. Oops. Anything that's like, oh, that's kind of cool, you know, like that's a cool scene, right? And we're just designing the moment, you know what I mean? We're just trying to find out, you know, what, like just trying to inspire a couple scenes here and there, right? And I'll show you kind of what I picked up. So I was doing this earlier. I did that way you won't need to see me like reference gathering for like an hour. But where's that? Livestream, February. Reference, composition reference. Here you go. Let me grab these out real quick. Boom. Sick. Look at that. I got 4 new references. Dude. All right, check this out. So I have a folder here and I'm just trying to be inspired, right? I'm not necessarily going to take these. I'm not necessarily not going to take these, but these cool scenes, like, you know, right now this character is looking like straight at camera, which, you know, is whatever. But what if they weren't? What if they're just walking, right? Just walking down a street or a path or something like that. And this is a scene where maybe the wolf is kind of like watching her walk, right? So we're super far away. We're kind of high up stalking our prey, right? And then these bars, these trees, right, create this kind of like jail kind of look. So whenever I see this composition, I'm like, oh, dude, yeah, we can like kind of use this to help tell our story. Just change the river thing into a kind of path of sorts, change the setting, you know, the foliage and stuff to the setting that we had established. And I mean, you know what I mean? Like you're basically there, right? A lot of these scenes, these are pretty cool. Kids walking down a path, going, so Little Red Riding Hood comes off the path, right? Eventually like steps off to pick flowers for her grandma. So the whole idea is like, you know, she needs to go off road, right? And this may be a scene that could be like that. Fight scenes, right? Cool, like ambient, hazy kind of moments in the forest, very dark, mysterious kind of feeling. Maybe she like finds the flower, you know what I mean? Little things like this. And it's just a bunch of cool shots that you could use, right? This is from Pinocchio. It's kind of just like, it's kind of scary looking, but whatever. Right? Pretty cool, right? Forest dudes walking, right? Pretty crazy. But this is all I do. And I'm just trying to find inspiration, because what we really need to happen here is I need 5 different scenes that, you know, I guess help tell the idea, right? And these are the last few that I found. And so like, you know, I just need to kind of link this up somehow. And this isn't like storyboarding in the sense that like every step is kind of like, you know, accounted for, right? It's not like every like key moment that kind of happens, or I guess in the like every like animated movement that happens, right? What we're looking for is just key understandings of different points in this kind of story. If she's walking down the path, right, and it's just kind of bright and sunny, I want to show that. As soon as she gets off the path and the mood changes, I want to show that. As soon as she, you know, gets to grandma's house and it feels kind of like odd, I want to show that too. Little things like that. you're not really trying to show like her walking here and then her like looking to the left. You know, you don't need all of those things. You just need that kind of that block of a moment. That way, whenever they go and like color grade this or, you know, do whatever they do to it, they can use your reference for that whole scene or that whole moment, and then they kind of stitch it all together for the sequence of scenes that you have. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, let's get started. Enough talking. Let's get into this. I'll probably find more reference and things as we kind of go, right? There's plenty of you know, I guess ideas here that we can kind of play with, but you know, I'm probably gonna be looking things up and kind of playing with stuff from there. You know what I mean? So, all right. Let's see. I'm gonna make a new thing. So first idea that you want to kind of understand is when we start, right? Try to kind of start in a format that makes sense for the final product. Because whenever you show your images, right? If you did something like this, oh, here's my color key. It's like a vertical format illustration type, right? It doesn't really work, right? It's not that it doesn't work. It's not that it can't work. But the whole point is that, you know, it's not really in the format of, you know, the film that's being shown, right? The animated film or live action or even a cinematic in a game, which, you know, will require color keys as well. You want to show it in the format that it's gonna be seen in, right? If it's a more square format, that's fine. If it's a more widescreen format, that's fine as well. What I did here was an HD format. So this is a 16:9, right? Aspect ratio. In reality, pixels wise, it's 8,000 by 4,500. That's generally speaking how big I work. You don't have to work that big, but the whole point is, you know, go to pixels, 1920 by 1080, right? If you make that, you know, document size, and then from there you're like, oh, I want a 6K file, right? So, you know, just scale it up accordingly. You'll get 3375 or whatever it is. But yeah, that's the idea. And then from here, we're just gonna start sketching. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna reference real hard. You know what I mean? Like we're gonna find something. I'm gonna show you how it, like this one's pretty cool. So I'm gonna reference this real hard. Boom. That's good enough. Nope. It disappears on me. Show all windows. There you go. If you guys in the live stream / Discord, you guys have any questions, you want to talk about anything, now's your chance. I do have some stuff I want to talk about in a second. We'll kind of get settled in here. We'll kind of get rolling, but yeah, if you guys have questions or comments or just want to chat, hit me up. Let's close that out.
I think I'll see you do it, but when you start out with color keys, you start out with like, you know, the general composition, black and white, and then you figure out the color or mood as you go.
So we'll be covering that week 3 in terms of like coloring and stuff.
My bad.
Like specific, like how I actually go about doing it. There is a rhyme and reason to it, right? I'll talk about that a little bit later. I don't want to rush too far past this, but yeah, there's a little bit of like, just as I guess a spoiler in terms of like how we're going about this. There is a little bit of like, I guess I want to say guessing, but you know, just kind of messing around and seeing what you like, and then understanding the rules or creating a set of rules and then replicating that idea, right? Because when we see color keys, really what you're doing is it's a bunch of rules that comprise a painting, right? Like, oh, the character's red, right? So every time we see the character, we see red, right? Or anytime like this red, you know, this amount of red is in the scene is how comfortable she is in a scene, right? If it's a house that's covered in a lot of like red fabrics and stuff, she feels like she's at home. But if she's in like a green forest, like the opposite color, right? There's a lot of like, you know, I guess symbolism that can be like, oh yeah, she doesn't really belong here, which, you know, in this case, it's a forest, so she probably doesn't belong there. You know what I mean? But yeah, I will answer your question for sure in terms of like these coming weeks. But yeah, for now, I don't want to dive too deep into it. You know what I mean?
No, you're good. I'm sorry about that.
No, you're good, man. You're good. Cool. So whenever I start, it's just loose, man. You know, just like we're not trying to win an award, right? We're not trying to show how badass our drawings are, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. This never goes to my leads or my art directors at all, ever, or even as an artist. Like I wouldn't ever send this to my artist to kind of draw from either, right? I would like clean it up a lot better and, you know, make this look a lot nicer. But the whole point is we just need just a little bit of understanding of what's happening, you know? So what I'm doing here is I just have a kind of like top-down shot, very similar to kind of what we're doing, like it basically one for one in terms of composition. All I'm gonna do is just change the subject, right? Just change little things here and there to make it feel, you know, appropriate. So, oops. Let me get some water real quick. All right. Oh, by the way, Southern California is storming like crazy. It's been raining a lot, and power's kind of been in and out. I don't think it's gonna shut off. It hasn't shut off today, but yesterday it shut off. Luckily, right after the stream the live stream plus stream. So thankfully, no, we didn't lose anything there. But I'm just saying there is possibilities. So you know, just if it randomly cuts off, if I freeze and I'm in that weird like half blinking, you know, mouth open kind of moment, just don't screenshot that. You know what I mean? Yeah, let's do that. It's probably gonna kill my computer. Whatever. Yeah, buddy. So what we're doing here, I'm just making a grid. And we all we all know how I feel about grids. But the whole point about this is what I'm trying to do is really just show, I guess, the scale of the area, right? So I'm gonna kind of break this down and show, like, you know, how deep we really go with a lot of these ideas, right? Because when you see a composition from an artist, sometimes it's just like, oh yeah, they just put the thing there. You know what I mean? And it's like, sometimes it's not like, it's probably semi-correct in some instances, right? But more often than not, there's usually a reason that, you know, things are the way they are, right? So what I'm doing here, establishing a horizon line and then setting up my perspective grid, something like that, right? Boom. I'm gonna grab this other star pattern. I'm gonna go something like that, right? I'm gonna crop this so we don't just crash my computer. And here we go, we got a grid. So let's see, actually, hold up. Let me make that, make this. Where's my third grid at? There you go. 100. Oops. Let's turn this up here. Grid 20. All right, so something I want to kind of talk about, right, when we're doing this. What I liked about this shot in particular was that, you know, we have this this character here, right? This little girl, right? That's that little like squiggle there. Yeah, that's a person, right? Person with legs and a head and a basket. So what I liked about it is we have this small little square, right? The subject of this idea is walking down this street, right? This path, right? And what we're doing is the camera is pretty far away from this character, right? It's like, you know, you're not standing right next to them. So what does that mean? We're looking down on this character, right? This camera is pretty high up, right? The horizon line is like pretty far off screen. So when I'm doing this, what I'm actually doing is I'm setting the distance between camera and character, making it feel like we're watching them. We're not really close by and we're not really with them, right? Because if I was right next to them, that'd be a whole different feeling if I was on the path with the character. And so what's happening is I have this character that is this big, right? Oops, something like this. This one little red square, right, on top of a sea of green, right? In this case, it's going to be a kind of foresty, kind of whatever, right? But the whole point is, this is your composition. It's a red dot in a green environment, right? And she's tiny, she's small, right? So it doesn't really feel like she has a lot of power here because she's actually in danger. There's a wolf stalking her, right? This isn't her home. This isn't where she belongs. The camera angle represents that. The colors will represent that once we kind of get to that point. And then we're just trying to show like a more, you know, I guess a more spying kind of approach. I'm like in the trees or I'm like around in the grass, kind of watching this, like hunting, basically. Imagine like a predator hunting a character, right? Or hunting their prey. It's the same idea. And this is what I chose as the first angle that we could possibly use for this idea, right? And we actually might use it. This is actually kind of nice. I do like where that's going. But for now, I'm going to put this on pause and we're going to do another one, right? Because, you know, that was from the perspective of the wolf, right? In this case, we're kind of watching her. So we're not really part of her. We're on the wolf side, or we are the wolves ourselves, right? But let's flip that camera angle. Or that perspective where it's like, well, now I'm not watching a prey walk down a path. I am the prey walking down the path. And let's see kind of what happens there, right? So in this case, I'm just gonna find a shot that kind of resembles, like, see, this is the same idea from before, right? It's like we're far away, so we don't really feel like we're with them, but we're watching them, right? But this, like, we feel like, I mean, I kind of feel like I'm the plant that's about to be like picked in this case, right? You know, like when you see a shot like this, it's cool because it feels like you're with them. You're walking with these people. You're in the caravan kind of coming along, right? You know, whether that's cool or not, who really knows? But the whole idea is the camera here feels like we are, narratively speaking, with this group versus these two shots. You're not really with these people. You're watching them. It's a very different vibe, right? It's kind of a cool shot. Let's see what else we got. See, like when you see a shot like this, it's pretty cool because you feel like you're with the guy. You're with him. He's about to get just destroyed, but you know, like if you've seen the movie. But you know, there's a whole different vibe that's kind of happening here, right? Even here, like it kind of feels like I'm like the wolf chasing this character. This character's running away from me at the very least, and like the scene's kind of moving, so the camera's moving, which means in reality, it means we're moving, right? We're stalking this character, and it's a really fun like kind of way to storytell, you know. All right, I think I had one earlier. Where's that one? That's kind of cool. Yeah, let's do this. So same idea, same exact idea. Take this, I'm gonna clip that inside so we don't see it anymore. Bring this up. And what I want to do is kind of think about like the moment that's happening. Because in this case, we're at the first scene, right? There's really like, I guess nothing happening as of yet, right? So, you know, it could be pretty calm. Maybe, no, pretty kind of low. I want to be a kid with her, right? Maybe she's a little bit older or taller. She's kind of walking. She has her basket in her hand. And then we have that big rock thing, whatever that is. Maybe it's like a tree root or something in this case, right? And I want to create some like perspective lines that kind of push us back in that space. And maybe what she's doing is she's kind of coming into this oopsies. She's kind of coming into like this entrance part of the forest, right? It's not like an entrance, but it's a clearly a different area, right? And that's basically it, you know? Like you look at these lines, you're like, that is trash. This guy gets paid to do this, right? Are you serious? I am serious. This is what it is. But you know, the reason we do it this way, right? And you know, for those of you that like making comps, and you know, all you really have to understand is we're doing this for us, right? This is for me. You know, no one's gonna see this. No one's ever gonna call me out, unless you guys do. No one's ever gonna call me out in terms of like, oh yeah, this, you know, your sketch looks like trash, you know, because they'll never see it, because they're gonna look at it and be like, wow, that's a sketch, no way. Yeah, because like we, especially like with junior artists, shit, maybe it's just me, who knows? But whenever we start, there's always this like tendency to be like, oh, I really need to show that I know how to draw. You know what I mean? Like you want to like kind of like the sense of overachieving, right? You're like, oh, I want to like really impress my art director or whatever. So let me draw this like super clean and like really like, you know, I know what I'm doing kind of thing, right? Which, you know, doesn't really work, right? In some instances it might, but really nailing down a good idea is what's going to make you, you know, I guess better, right? It's really what's going to kind of set you apart from the other artists. So whenever you see me do drawings like this, I'm just trying to understand placement. I'm trying to understand my general composition. You know, I'll fix everything later, right? I know perspective. I know how to paint. Like I'll fix all that in a later pass. But for now, all I'm looking for is just a general understanding of like what the hell am I looking at, right? Let's see. And I'm doing grids for everything, right? Don't forget your grids, just like we always talk about. It takes 10 seconds. You know what I mean? The last one took a little bit longer, but you know, that's because it was weird. Cool. Sorry, I'm checking the live stream chat if there's any questions. And there isn't. You guys are slacking on me today. What's up? It's because it's all cold in California. Everyone's nervous. All right. Where's my, all right, this is my sketch. Boom. So what I'm going to do here, like what I'm trying to show here, right, is that now I have, you know, let's draw this out. Let's say it says like some sort of entrance. It doesn't have to actually be an entrance, but the whole point is she's moving in from a brighter area of the forest into the darker area of the forest, right? And I have the character standing right here, right? This is her. That's the signature, right? That's the end-looking figure, right, with legs, right, and a head. Maybe she's a little shorter, or maybe she's like her legs are off canvas, which that actually makes a lot more sense. But looking at this, if I were to block her out, right? G, boom, boom, red, boom. So I have this character. She's this big in the scene, right? She feels a little more dominating. She feels like she can do this, right? Like the whole point is when you look at this composition, right? And I'm just gonna copy the same colors from the last composition. Boom. Right? When I see this, there's a bigger significance of red in this scene. She is more present in this scene. She has more power in the scene because she's bigger versus, right? Going to the other stuff versus this scene here. It's just a different point of view, right? It's big square in an environment, little square. Which one feels weaker to you? Which one feels like they're a little more, you know, small, not as strong? You know what I mean? And it's what kind of message are you trying to say? Because when we see this story, you can tell this from a couple different perspectives. You can tell this from the wolf's perspective in the sense that the wolf's watching her, right? Wolf's like, oh, hey, I'm stalking my prey. I'm going to eat this little girl. So she's insignificant, she's tiny, and I'm showing how big this world is with her in it, right? So that's why little square, or little red square, green background, right? Forest, right? We'll paint all that later. And then this scene here, right? We're with her, we're next to her. We're not the wolf, we're her friend, or you know, her whatever. The whole point is the audience is coming into the scene with her. So now I have big red, green scene, right? A little more dominant, still not her home, still not safe, quote unquote, but it is something that, you know, tells the story of the power dynamic between the character and the environment. Makes sense? Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. So from here, let's keep going. Right? I have these like super loose scribbles. It took, I don't know, what, 10 seconds and then the grid, right? But we have 2 ideas here, which is fine. Let's kind of dig a little bit further, right? Let's start seeing what we can make. Oh, there's this scene, this image that I saw earlier. Where is it at? There it is. I want this one. This is the one I'd be looking for. All right, next scene. Any questions on this? Anybody confused? Anybody like, you're full of shit? This is not art. Did not sign up for this. All right, so check this out. we have the moment where she essentially kind of goes off path. You know what I mean? And so I want to show that. I want to show the moment where she kind of, steps off the road and she's starting to go pick those flowers that she wants her grandma to have, because she's a sweet little girl and she wants her grandma to have flowers while she drinks wine and eats cake, right? So what I'm doing here is a couple things. I'm basically copying this composition, but I do want to show you something. So we're a little farther away. Maybe she's just kind of walking down. I want her to be tangent, like not tangent, but like just really pushing that, like, there's the hill cresting here. Like if you actually look at this, it's kind of like that. She's on a hill walking down. This is the path over this way, is going that way, right? And she's just kind of walking down and maybe she sees like flowers or something. So what I want to do is maybe create some dappled light or something to kind of lead us into that area, right? So I'm gonna just kind of plan that out just a little bit. But I want this to feel like, she's going into danger. And what I'm actually gonna do is flip this horizontal and see if that, makes any more sense. Because maybe she came from this way, right? I'm going to have this scene and she's kind of going like walking that way, but then she gets to here, she's like, oh shit, there's some cool flowers over there, and she starts basically going off path. And what she's really doing, right, is she's taking a detour, right? The whole idea is she's kind of walking down a designated area, and then she kind of gets distracted and then she just turns, right? And that's exactly what's happening here. Left to right, right? In this case, screen left, right? Starting screen left to screen right is positive, right? That's going towards grandma, right? Now she, as the character, is not going towards grandma. She's taking a detour to go pick the flower. She's going from bottom up, but instead now she's going top to bottom, right? Right to left, going the opposite way. She's actively going against where she's supposed to be going, and the composition is meant to represent that, right? Even though you might not be able to tell, if you look at each composition, right? She's always moving from left to right, left to right. She's going to grandma's left to right. We might be watching her or we might be with her, but the whole idea is we're setting up this idea that screen left is home, screen right is grandma's, and we're just kind of walking that way, right? It's not like super consistent, right? Because these are just variations of the same idea. But the whole point is I'm trying to set up the idea of a path, and we're trying to set direction for our characters. Now, when she actively goes against that, right, her direction in the composition flips as well. Now we're going from, top to bottom, right to left. And it's a descending path, so maybe it's like it feels a little bit darker, whatever it is, right? But the whole point is, we want to see how we can help tell that story, And what I want to do is I want to make it feel like she can't really go anywhere. She's kind of like, not that she can't go anywhere, but she's very like trapped in these scenes, right? She's very like, she's falling into the cage, right? She was told not to go off the path, and because she did, she is essentially you know, I guess falling into the trap of this wolf character, right? Really nothing like too crazy in terms of like storytelling, but the whole point is we want to at least inform the audience somehow, you know, because they don't really understand, you know, the nuance of everything that we're explaining here, but they do feel it. You know, there's always an idea that you know, the audience kind of like picks up on. It's kind of like whenever your mom or whoever like looks at your art and they're like, oh yeah, you know, I don't get it, you know, or it's like, oh, that's cool, but it doesn't look very good. And our natural tendency, right, is always like, you don't know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? Like, you're not an artist. So, well, you know what I mean? Because, you know, you get crits from your parents or whatever showing your art. And then, like, you know, you get mad sometimes because they're like, they don't get it. You know, they're looking at it. They're like, I don't see it, or I don't really like that, or it looks bad or whatever. And, you know, our natural tendency is to like tell them like, oh, you don't get it. You don't know. But the point is, these people, right? These people in our lives or these people in the world that don't do art, they're the ones that consume this media, right? When we design something, if they don't feel it, if they don't understand it, or if they don't like catch it, they don't have to like actively catch it, but they do have to subliminally catch it, right? They do have to like kind of feel that moment. They're like, I don't really know why, but I feel kind of nervous, you know? But our job is to know why, right? So when we're designing these scenes, you really got to really have to understand that, you know, you want to design this with the audience in mind. If they don't get it, you know, then you kind of lost the point, right? Because that's who's watching this. You know, we often design for artists too much, where it's like, you know, like, oh yeah, there's this really cool form language. You're like, no one cares about form language outside of art. You know what I mean? When was the last time you heard a normal person be like, dude, like the consistency in the Greeble, in the Millennium Falcon, right? Dude, so sick. You know, like, I mean, some people say that, but you know, it's not 100% normal. You know what I mean? Like, it's something where it's like, you know, usually it's the story, usually it's the moments that people really care about. And that's what we're trying to aim for, right? So cool. 3 comps. And we're an hour in, guys. We're an hour in. So I'm gonna make my grid real quick. I did spend a little more time on this drawing. Not that it's any good, but you know, it's getting there. Boom, something like this. Oops. There you go. Something like that, right? Make a grid again. The idea behind all this, making grid stuff, right? It gets old. It's like, you know, this is something where it's like, yeah, we've seen you do that. You've seen me like do it for every painting in the live stream. It's like, I think you'd be surprised how often, especially at work, you'll like get someone like, oh yeah, I didn't put a grid on there, and then it's like, it just like tanks the whole entire meeting for that painting. It's like, why are we talking? Why? This painting is trash. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it don't even matter if the idea is good. It's just like this whole painting is trash. So why are we even looking at it? And it's a bad feeling.
There is a pretty good tool for making perspective grids.
There is.
And I think it's a free download.
There definitely is. And there's a million ways to go about it. I don't know. I just like, it takes me like 10 seconds. So I'm kind of like, eh. You know what I mean? Like, I think, oh
yeah, it's just like your process.
Yeah. It's like, cause you know, let's say I did that. It's like, how much is it really helping? You know? And I'm very into trying to use things as in the most like basic way possible, just because like I'll like, for example, like I teach at like schools and stuff, or I'll walk onto somebody's computer to give them feedback or whatever, right? Like, you know, I'll sit down on the computer, and it really sucks when it's like, oh, I can't do any of this. You know what I mean? So it's like, I can't, you know, I can't interact with this computer because like, oh, you remapped your brush key. You know what I mean? Like those type of people. I won't say it like that, but you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, and so I just try to use base Photoshop as much as I can. I remap some things here and there, but if it doesn't take me that long, especially like a grid, it's easy, you know? So, all right. But yeah. All right. So we got 3 comps here, right? We have about an hour left. So I'm going to just pick one and kind of start going from here. But something I really want to convey here, right, is that, you know, we're trying to stay as loose as possible, and we're trying to understand the general moves that this story needs to make, right? I'm going to kind of go through the process on like how I would actually take this thumbnail. If you've seen my like, you know, process before, right? Just like we were doing for the centipede creature thing. It's the same process, but the whole point is, you know, we don't really need to worry about a lot of these shapes. We don't need to worry about a lot of these drawings just because it doesn't really matter. You know, you're not going to show anybody this. This is going to be a painting at the end of the day. And so don't waste time trying to just, you know, I guess, paint everything or draw everything to a T, right? I like to segment my process and make sure I'm covering the ideas. In this case, I have proportions and placement and general understanding kind of happening here. Design, like, you know, environment design, the character design, the colors, the values, all that stuff we'll do later. But for now, understand what your story is, right? It's a little girl walking down the forest and there's some sort of danger involved, right? There's some sort of action that is, you know, happening that's outside of her control, right? She's being watched by this wolf, or she's being stalked, or whatever it is, right? And she's kind of deviating from that path. So, you know, a couple different things, and we're representing that story-wise, right? So just things to kind of understand. But yeah, this isn't like sequential. Like these thumbnails that we're showing here, they're not really meant to be, I guess, like a sequential moment, right? But what they are supposed to be is just different options that we can choose. Because this one right here, we had talked about, we're like with her, we're walking with her, going down the forest. Down at the back there is a kind of darker area of the forest where it's like, oh, that's where the danger is, right? We kind of want to tell that story. But this is with her. So this is, you're in the perspective of Little Red Riding Hood in this case, right? This one, we're in the woods looking down at her, right? We're stalking her, we're watching her like a prey to, or a predator to prey. And that's the perspective of the wolf, right? It's 2 different perspectives happening here. So just kind of understand like what story you want to tell. Because what you don't want to do is kind of shift between, you know, one story to the next without understanding whose point of view you're trying to say. Because in her point of view, she doesn't know there's a wolf there. And then in his point of view, you know, he's trying to stay as hidden as possible, or he's trying to, you know, he's observing from far away. So, you know, you don't want to like mix up the ideas too much, because, you know, maybe you could kind of mess that up like with the payoff at the end. And I'll show you next week in terms of like where I would take some of these comps, but just understanding like there are little things I am paying attention to just to make sure that this story is smooth, right? All right. Which one do you guys like more? I kind of like this one, this first one. I like this last one too, and we can make that look better. But like, I don't know, I'm feeling something. Maybe I'll do the last one. That one seems fun. I have some cool lighting stuff that I want to kind of do with that later. I'll stick with this for now. I'll do all 5 in my, you know, I'll come back with 5 kind of thing. But this is kind of like the start of it, and then I'll show you how we kind of go about like picking and stuff like that a little bit later. Findas says, I missed a little bit of the lecture earlier. Is this a sequence of frames, or are these different options? So these are different options, right? The whole idea is she's just walking down the street, essentially the path. And, you know, I guess in this case, this would be like another sequence. But, you know, we're just trying to figure out ideas. She's just walking down the path and she's trying to get to grandma's right now. So we're just trying to represent that. So cool. All right, cool. So I have my first idea. I'm like, okay, cool. I like where it's going. There's a lot to be liked about it, but you know, what I want to do here is you don't really need this anymore because you already have the comp, right? So we're good. And then now I'm going to take this and I want to kind of represent some things, right? right now she's like the bank, the main area, like the safe area, right? The path is still right behind her, right? She's up, you know, there's a road up here, right? It's like over here, right? So what do I need to show? I kind of want to show a couple things. There's this, because like, she's like 2 feet away from the path. If she just walked back up, it sounds like she'd be fine, right? But I do want to create this border of like, she crossed the line. She's going into enemy territory at this point, right? And so maybe I'm thinking, oh, what if there's like a river, like a small little stream where it's like just rocks, it can kind of serve as a fun little like, I guess illustration moment. But you have this little stream here that has like a bunch of rocks, and it has just it's like a small trickle of a stream. You can walk in it, it's like as deep as a puddle type of idea, right? And so this is kind of representing like a border that she's gonna cross. She's gonna hop across, and then now she's in danger. Now she's in his territory, or the wolf's territory. And it, you don't have to actually show like a line, right? But the whole point is you make the character kind of do something. If they just walk and there's no like barrier, it doesn't, the audience doesn't really know when that transition happens, right? But if there's like something, like it could be like this, where there's a physical thing, it's a stream of water that's, I guess causing a separation. Or maybe it's like light, right? Where it's like this side is light and this side's in shadow. She kind of crossed over that kind of idea. You can play with a couple different things, and we'll probably play with all of it, to be honest. But the whole point is, now that I know what composition that I'm doing, there's little things here and there that you can kind of add just to make this, just that little bit better, right? This is like the set dressing and design that, we kind of want to think about. But it's just understanding that there is more to this story now. Now I have a chance to really talk about the ideas a bit more, right? Just like when we're doing film studies, for those that have taken my class, there is the idea that, there's the main idea. When we separate the compositions into 2 value reads, right? The idea is that, it's this little girl, she's going down a hill, and she's kind of straying from path, right? She's going left now instead of right. That's the main idea. We got that. Now, we want little secondary ideas, tertiary ideas to kind of explain a little bit further. So using that 3rd value, not that we literally are, but the whole point is now we have more room to kind of think. Excuse me. And then now we're trying to, push things a little bit further, right? So. Sorry, getting some water. Cool. Let's get into this. So what I'm going to do here, I want everyone to kind of be clear about this. I am not, I guess, painting values right now. I am using values, or I will be using values, but this isn't a value painting by any means. This isn't the lighting that we're choosing. This isn't, I guess the kind of value structure that we're intending. These are all placeholders, and these are all just little things that just kind of mark my place, right? I don't need this to be, I guess, really deep in terms of like value and lighting and stuff. I just need to know that, okay, cool. We're looking at a thing, and I kind of understand what's happening here, right? So, boom. You got a tree here, and I want to show that this thing is on a hill. Cool. All right. Boom, right? Pretty easy. Hopefully this makes sense. I think this is like, it gets in the weeds, right? It gets very deep. And I think something to understand, like whenever we are designing these kind of comps or like painting these images, right? It can go as deep as you want it to go. If you're somebody that's like, I don't really care about all that, you know what I mean? Well, for one, you should probably change your mindset, because this is how good images are made. Not saying this image is going to be good, but the people that make the better images, they're thinking about this stuff. But the whole point is, understanding that it's like, oh, it's not just rule of thirds. It's not just, I guess putting things on a page, or it's not even just even about copying, right? Because you saw me reference some of the ideas earlier, right? Where clearly I had a composition that I was obviously pulling from, but it's not really about that. You know what I mean? It's not really like that comp that I was using. It really didn't matter that much, right? It's like, I used it to kind of help as an understanding, and then from here we turn it off and we're just kind of rolling, So just kind of understand that people don't own compositions. You can't own shape placement. At the end of the day, we're just, I don't know, we're just referencing. We're just using this to kind of help us get to whatever it is we need to get to. But you got to know what you're referencing and why, right? I didn't just take a comp because I was like, oh, that looks cool. I took a comp because I could see it fitting with my story, and seeing how I change it is helps really kind of get those ideas a little bit better. But if you take like a superhero pose or the wrong composition or something that doesn't really quite work as well, you'll kind of run into this problem of like, well, your comp is fighting against your story because the comp feels very heroic or feels very, I guess, very, I guess, I don't know, feels like it's kind of like pushing the audience to feel like this is a very heroic moment, because that's probably where you took it from. Like you took a Captain America scene or whatever, and you're like, oh yeah, I'll do something like that. But then, that's not your scene, So that's not the idea behind your scene, so to speak. Boom. Let's go, dude. Easy. It's like it does itself, man. Maybe it goes on a little bit more.
I'm guessing this season's flu is like pretty nasty and like almost everlasting too.
Dude,
in a bad way.
it's annoying for me too, man. And I'm for everybody. I'm so sorry. Like I'm not coughing as much. I mean, I guess it's hard to tell from this stream, but like, I'm still like kind of gummy, so I have to like clear my throat a lot, which really sucks.
No, don't. I know. I understand how you feel. It's just the fact that like it's like if it's not even just here that's getting affected. It's just like everyone's who's like getting their flu.
Oh
it's
yeah,
like,
dude.
it's like almost like that's prolonging.
Oh yeah, man. It's my sister got sick. I knew a whole bunch of people got sick at the same time, and like surprisingly enough, it wasn't COVID or anything. I was like, all right, well, I guess whatever's going on, it's all jacked up now. It's all powered up. Or maybe I'm just weak. Maybe. Who knows? It was funny though. I think every year, I don't know about you guys, but like I get sick like once a year, but it's like a strong one. You know what I mean? Like it's always like December, and maybe like, I don't know, maybe my body finally is like, you know what? You don't want to take that break? We'll make you take that break. It's like, cause like, I'll just be working or whatever. And, it's like, I guess like my body, like, cause my sister would be sick and everyone around me would be sick. And then I'm like, oh yeah, nothing happened to me. Right. I was like, I'm fine. And then like once a year, it just like hits me like a freaking hurricane. It's terrible. Maybe it's my body telling me something. Who knows? I should probably listen to it more. But that's not fun, right? We can't do live streams if I listen to it more. Dude, look at that! Look at that oil spill of a little stream. Sick. And then they ask you. They're like, hey, did you come up with the composition by yourself? And you're like, hell yeah, I did, bro. You look them in the eyes. You tell them straight up, like, that was all me, dude. That was all me. do a little helmet. I had an idea where I was like, oh yeah, what if like this Little Red Riding Hood character is just like, you know, this kid, right? Boy or girl, I'm not quite sure yet, but it's like this kid, and maybe his or her father like died in some sort of fight, like he's a samurai or something, and instead of giving them a this little red hood, maybe it's like he gave him his like helmet, you know, it's like this this like kind of oversized helmet for the kid, and maybe he has like a Tonto on him or something, you know, and it's like supposed to protect him, and that's, you know, his mom, no, is it his grandma her grandma in Little Red Riding Hood gave her that hood. So I was like, oh, maybe her grandma gave her dad's like helmet or something. This is like what's protecting her. Little things like that. Doesn't have to be crazy, but the whole idea is we're just trying to like find reason, find meaning where we can, you know, and it does a lot. So let's see. Boom. There you go. Red. Baby, let's go. All right, so composition 1, really nothing crazy. And what I'd probably do from here, right, is grab this whole thing, duplicate it up. And this is just for like, you know, messing around, just to try to see what happens. But I wanted this dappled lighting to kind of come into effect, right? So I'm gonna duplicate this out or mask that out, and then grab my hard round flat. There you go. That's what I'm talking about. So we have dappled lighting now. Look at that. I could probably do that better. We're just trying to like stamp things in, right? We're just trying to like understand that there are things that are happening in these scenes. There are like, you know, moments. There's an idea happening here. And I just want to show that, you know, we're cognizant of that, right? We're just trying to like lead the audience somewhere. Maybe, you know, maybe the background kind of has a lot more light to it. Here, I'll grab that. Duplicate, boom. Nope, not duplicate. Boom, it's lighter, right? Showing the values of like, you know, like the lighter area, safer, right? Darker is less safe. We can kind of play with that idea. And then here, we're just going now. We're just messing around. So let's see what happens. Oop. Sick. Look at that. Dappled lighting, baby. Nope, not that one. Default. Maybe it's like, it kind of feels like she's being led into this forest. You know, maybe like, you know, when like in games, for example, like you'll play and you see like this treasure chest or something. You see like this thing, and for whatever reason, you know that, you know, I need to go there, right? There's a light, there's a shaft of light kind of hitting thing. Maybe so that's something that we can kind of play with, but it feels like it's kind of attracting her to this space, right? And she's like, because right now she doesn't know she's in danger, right? So technically speaking, maybe the lighting and the color and everything, which we'll cover in coming weeks, doesn't actually need to be that, I guess, I don't know, intense, right? Because it could still feel happy. Maybe it's slowly starting to cool down. Maybe it's slowly starting to darken, but she still has this like ray of hope because she still wants to go to the place, right? She's still trying to you know, I guess go to grandma's with this flower. She's like, oh yeah, I found this cool thing, you know. But you know, we want the scenario to kind of change as we're going. We want this scene to start telling us like, oh shit, she's in danger. So right now, maybe there's a bunch of dappled light. It can feel magical. It can do what it does. But once we have this, once we have these lights, and maybe she gets to the flower, maybe like a big cloud kind of comes overhead, and then the forest gets really dark all of a sudden, right? It's just like darker, ambient, right? And you kind of feel that mood change kind of happening, you know? Dude, look at that. Sick. No. All right. So there were some things I wanted to talk about. You know, there's some topics that just kind of came up throughout the week, and just things, you know what I mean? I think I'll have conversations with like students or with friends and whatnot, and just things that, you know, we want to talk about. So if there's anything you guys want to talk about, just let me know. Just call it out. But for now, we'll just kind of hop into some topics that I had planned. So I think right now, right, it's interesting because there's a lot of people like not in work right now, right? There's, you know, obvious from, you know, if you don't know, there's been a lot of layoffs, but there's a lot of like people like looking for like jobs and stuff too, you know. And there's if you get calls back, great, that's perfect, you know. And I think that's I don't know, that's it's great that you're finding work and all that, but there's, I think for me, there's like this expectation oftentimes that it could be like super detrimental to I guess the process, you know. And if it sounds kind of odd, but like whenever we're applying for jobs, right, you know, oftentimes, you know, you apply for a job, you do the thing, and it's a lot of like, you know, you're just kind of applying and then there's nothing, you know what I mean? There's like a lot of like you're just kind of throwing it out into the wind and like nobody's hearing you, you know. And that sucks. It's the worst feeling. It really is a terrible process, like we talked about in previous weeks. But what I want to talk about is really setting up that expectation of like what actually happens, right? Because, you know, there's oftentimes we'll kind of be, I don't know, like we'll kind of be applying for work, and all of a sudden you get a call back. You're like, dude, hell yeah, you know what I mean? Like you're like, you know, you're kind of you're making it, you know what I mean? Like somebody called you back or whatever. And I think I just wanted to kind of talk about like how often a lot of those things go cold, you know. There is like, especially like, cause so right now currently I'm a freelance artist, so I work contract. So you know, I'll get calls or I'll get emails or whatever, and then I'll just get ghosted out of nowhere. You know what I mean? But like, it's like kind of how a lot of things work, right? I think like I've gotten ghosted like this year alone, right? We're like February 6th. This year alone, I've gotten ghosted like 6 times already. You know what I mean? Out of all the jobs that, you know, I'll like kind of, people will reach out, like they reached out to me, you know, and then like, they're like, hey, we'd really love to work with you. And I'm like, yeah, sure, let's do it, you know? And then all of a sudden, fucking nothing, you know what I mean? And it's like, it's very odd. And I was talking to a friend about it because he was applying for work, and or I guess he or she, but he's applying for work, and then, you know, he'll get a call or whatever sometimes, and then it's like nothing, you know? It's like just ghosted. And it's like, what the fuck, man? You know what I mean? It's so disheartening. And I feel like really setting up, I guess, the understanding that, like, you know, when you get a call and, you know, there's, I guess, I don't know, there's this expectation like, okay, cool, we're in it. You know what I mean? Because I think there's a difference in understanding about the situation that happens often, where like, you know, you're looking for work. So, you know, like they're like, hey, can you, do you have time for a meeting? You're like, dude, I'll meet you right now. You know what I mean? Like you're like, I'm free and let's go. Right. And then like, cool, let's meet in 2 weeks. Let's meet in 1 week. Or it's like, let us get back to you. You know what I mean? There's like this distance in, I guess in, I don't say appetite, but like, you know, there's this difference in like how they're kind of going about things and how willing you are to, you know, I guess do things, right? Because, you know, they're looking for an employee, but they have like thousands of applicants, and you're the only one you're applying. In your mind, you're like, well, I want to work here. I want to do this thing. And I just want to kind of like just talk about how, I guess, I don't know, how like terrible that can be, but really setting expectations, because in a job setting, really kind of understanding how, I guess recruiters or art teams kind of function, you know, because there's times where like for example, like I got ghosted like literally like last month, you know, not even that long ago. Like they reached out to me, right? They emailed me and they were like, hey, we'd love to work with you. I'm like, cool, that's great, that's awesome. And I didn't hear from them for like 2 weeks, you know, like it was literally like I sent, you know, like they sent me. This is when I was sick, by the way. So I was laying on my couch, like right there, and I was like dying. And then I got an email. I was like, oh shit, that's awesome. And I responded with my iPad in my chest as I was like sweating, had a fever. And I was like, cool, let's do it. Sent it, fucking nothing, like nothing. I was like, what the hell? You know, like why are you even emailing me if you're not? You know what I mean? Like it's really odd, right? And then like 2-3 weeks later, like, oh, sorry, you know, we were busy, you know, this and that. And, you know, I understand. And, you know, I have this policy for me where I never really count on getting hired, right? Because, you know, as a contractor, you'll get reached out all the time. Oftentimes, it's a lot of like, they're just feeling it out. They're just like, we don't really know if we're hiring right now, but we're just trying to see what you offer. You know what I mean? Or sometimes it's just like that. They're just looking. They're just dipping their toe in. And then if, you know, for people hiring or for people that want to get hired, it's really a lot of like, you know, it's like, hey, I need this now, you know? And they're like, we may or may not need this. And there's this disconnect that's really, really bad for your mental health, right? It's because, you know, like there's a difference in urgency, and it can feel personal sometimes because you're like, oh, they never called me back or whatever. It's like, you know, like it's oftentimes it might not even be their fault. You know, sometimes it's just like, oh yeah, we had a team change, or there's something happened, something came up, which by the way, always happens. Like this, you'd be surprised how often like things just out of nowhere, they're like, oh yeah, we had a whole like art team change. You're like, what the hell? You know, like that happens, you know? Like, yeah, it does. Big studios, not as much, right? Because they're a little more established. Small studios, all the time. You'll just come up and they'll be like, oh yeah, we're hiring like 10 people and we're letting go 5 or whatever, you know? Because I mean that's what it is. And then as a contractor, you know, they'll call you 1 week because they had plans, they had money, they had budget. And the next week they found out they just had a earnings report, they just had a whatever, and they're just like, oh yeah, we don't really know if we can hire you right now or whatever, you know. It happens, it really does. And so you know, I guess setting that expectation of like, even if you're getting calls, it can be a long time before you actually like kind of land something, especially because, you know, they're not really in a hurry because they have so many applicants, they have so many people applying. They can like kind of take their time. And I just wanted to kind of talk about, you know, that idea because, you know, you just get ghosted, and it hurts because you're like waiting, because you're like, you know, because oftentimes it's desperation where, you know, you're, I guess, you're low on funds or your savings, whatever it is, and then you're just like, oh yeah, I finally got something cool, something's in the door, and you're just like on hold, you know what I mean? And oh dude, it sucks, it's terrible, man. And I, you know, it happens a lot, and I just want to kind of talk about it because I had a friend, we were talking about it, and then he had like no idea. He was like, what, that happens often? And I was like, dude, that's like every contract. I think 1 out of like every like 3 or 4 actually go through for me. We're like, and they come back later, right? They always like, oh yeah, you know, we meant to say something, but you know, I don't like count on it. You know what I mean? Had a in the live stream chat, I'm a new grad, or Day Yang. Oh, if I said that wrong, I'm so sorry. I'm a new grad, and I'm 1, so sad for all the people that got laid off, and 2, kind of bummed and afraid of trying to push into the industry with all this influx of talent. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's a scary time, man. You know, I think it's something where I think as an outsider looking in, like it can be a very scary, hectic place. You just heard, you know, hundreds of people got let go. I think like in the thousands almost. Probably just got let go, and then you're like, I'm trying to find a job now. You know what I mean? And it's just like, it's scary. It really is a difficult, I guess, scenario to kind of be in. But you know, I think there is something where I do feel like a lot of places are starting to kind of hire again. I don't know how true that is, but I do feel like because we're like in like February, right? And you know, we're projects are starting to kind of get set up. You know, there are things kind of on the horizon, right? Whether they're like instantly coming or not, you know, I can't really say for sure, but there is a lot of like things kind of happening behind the scenes. Yeah, some big studios are letting people go, but a lot of small studios are actually picking people up. And you know, it really just depends. I would say just understand that as somebody trying to get hired, right? Just keep working on whatever it is that you need to work on, right? Because I think like there's this mindset shift that happens a lot where you're like, oh, you know, well, I'm a graduate, or I have a portfolio. Oh, that was weird. I have a portfolio and I need to kind of, you know, find work. So I'm in portfolio mode, right? And I wouldn't say that's the best way to go about things. You know what I mean? The reason I say that is because I have students who are like, oh, should I just work on my portfolio? Should I skill build and just apply, or like, should I work on portfolio, or should I apply to jobs, or should I just skill build? And then really for me, it's always like, yes to all three. You should always be doing all of it, right? Because that's usually the best way to kind of go about it. It's a lot of like, just apply to jobs at all times, right? Anything you see, if you're like intermediate level to advanced, be applying for jobs, right? Just do it. There's no reason not to. The worst that's gonna happen is you get rejected, and that's it, right? Best case scenario, they hire you. You never really know. But always be kind of adding to your portfolio / updating things, right? Every class that you take, there's usually like an assignment or two that's like, oh yeah, that's a portfolio piece, you know, and you can kind of work from there. And then, you know, you have like skill building things that you can, you know, do, like, oh, I need to learn 3D. Like I'm in a 3D mood right now. So I'm kind of doing a lot of that, but also, you know, just be skill building, you know, just always be learning something. Because the thing is with this industry where it's quiet, it's like crickets up until you get hired, or up until you get to the skill that makes it possible for you to get hired, right? Because for those that have like finally kind of landed their first job, right? And you know, at first when you're like a student, it's kind of like, it's pretty quiet. There's a lot of like, you know, it's not really much happening. It's just like, I've never even gotten an email on freelance before. Like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. And then out of nowhere, it's like, oh, 3 or 4 emails at once. You're like, oh, hey, we saw that you're looking for work, or you're capable, or whatever, this and that, right? And that's really what it is, right? It's a lot of like, you don't really know until they just hit you up, and you can't time it. You know, there's a lot of like, I give myself 6 months until I have to find a real job. And my advice always, just go find that job. You know what I mean? Just go work at that place, go make sandwiches, go, you know, work fast food, whatever it is, right? Just do it, because the worst case scenario is, you know, you don't get a job in the time that you're doing, your savings are shot, your mental health is definitely shot. And, you know, you're just, I don't know, you're just burnt out on the whole thing and you hate it. Versus, yeah, you might have a little bit less time when it comes to actually doing art, but when you're working somewhere else. But, you know, you haven't, I don't want to say infinite time, but you don't have a clock over your head anymore. Ideally, get a job that, like, you know, can sustain your way of living, essentially, or find a scenario in which you can sustain your way of living, right? Because if you just can't, like I guess, keep paying your bills, and it might be tight for a little while, and that's, you know, that's a whole different story. But just understand that, you know, just give yourself time, because you don't really know how long it's going to take. And setting that that limit on yourself of like, oh, I only have a year left, I only have 6 months. You start skipping steps. I found that oftentimes. Oops, let me save before I lose this. There you go. You find yourself skipping steps. I've had students that like kind of take my class. So I teach world building 2, among other classes, but I teach world building 2, and it's often it's like, oh yeah, so I skipped world building 1 because I only have this amount of time. And inevitably what ends up happening is I send them back to world building 1 because I'm like, you're missing a lot of these skills. It's not something that you can just skip. It's not something that you just don't need. It's something that, it's a fundamental idea, skill to, I guess, perform the way you need to perform. You know what I mean? And ultimately I send them back. And what happens is they wasted the $800 for my class, and then they got to go back and take world building 1. And then they weren't really at the level to grasp world building 2. So they have to take that again. And so you wasted, 10 weeks there, and then another 10 weeks, and then another 10 weeks when you could have just did it, in, I guess, 10 weeks instead of 30, you know what I mean? Or 20 weeks instead of 30, right? It usually doesn't work out in my experience from what I've seen. So I just highly recommend just try not to, I guess, do that, and just set yourself up to where you have, I don't want to say infinite time, but just more time than you probably would have initially thought, just because it's like, I guess working a quote unquote normal job is nothing. It's not really like anything to be ashamed of. It's not like losing or anything. It's just, you're just buying yourself time. All right, check this out, right? Rough sketch, nothing crazy. We're not really like, I'm just kind of messing with the dappled light right now, but the whole idea is this, I'm just trying to play around with this and just see what happens. I'm just seeing like, oh yeah, what's gonna make this look kind of interesting. That's kind of interesting, kind of like that. But when I'm designing my images, right, we talked about that core idea that we had from the initial sketch, right? Oops, boom. Oopsie, there it is. And then we're just trying to follow it now, right? And I'm just placing things in the scene. Like, I'll fix the lighting later, but just understand that, like, when we see this, I just have like some core ideas when it comes to, like my dappled lighting and my god rays, and then my land masses and my trees, right? And we'll kind of fix all that. You don't have to worry about it. But this thumbnail, you'll see it from like this far away. It's like, does that make sense? And would I rather have the character like maybe up a little bit higher, right? She feels a little more like, I don't know, when she's like above this horizon or this line right there, the line that the line of the hill, it feels like she's a little stronger. It feels like she's very I don't know. She has a little more control in the scenario, but when she's like below it, it feels like she's like drowning or like sinking. She's kind of like going deeper into these depths, and like a little bit of like pressure on that tangent, right? A little bit of like, because like they always say, don't tangent. I say tangent whenever you want to, right? But you're trying to find like these scenarios where it's like, oh yeah, there's a little bit of pressure on her, and she's like in this weird kind of spot, because that's what's happening. That's what's going on in the story, So let's see. Boom. Do I want to darken this more? That's kind of cool. But yeah, like going back to what I was talking about a second ago with the getting ghosted and stuff, it's like surprising how often that happens. I think for me, it kind of sucks, and it feels bad, like, because there's like this hope, you know what I mean? Like if you're kind of like looking for your first jobs, and you're kind of like, I guess trying to like break in essentially, right? And then you get that email, you're like, oh shit, you know what I mean? Like this is it, you know what I mean? This is the moment, you know what I mean? I had this interview where this guy was like, oh yeah, so we're looking for an artist to do A, B, and C thing. And I was like, cool, yeah, great. I do A, B, and C thing. You know what I mean? And then he told me straight up, and he was like, so if you have any other opportunities that you're trying that are kind of like knocking on your door right now, you should take those. You should, just and he goes, just understand that we are just kind of prodding and poking around. So, it's like our urgencies are different. And I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. And like, I do contracts. So it's like, it's whatever. It's like, that's normal. That's life. But it is interesting, I guess, talking to him about that, because you know, it's, I guess for me when I first started, every job that you kind of do, it almost, I won't say feels personal, but like it kind of does. You know what I mean? Like if you don't get hired, it's kind of like, oh, they hated me. You know what I mean? It's like, no, it's oftentimes it's like finance reasons. There's team restructuring. There's all sorts of things where they're like, oh, you know, we just had a different artist kind of come in or whatever. And it really does, I guess, take a toll on you if you I guess don't understand like how some of these scenarios kind of play out, you know. Diane says, isn't working freelance then so much more inconsistent than working in studio just because of the ghosting and stuff? It can be. You know, I mean, yeah, it is, generally speaking. But that's the nature of the job, right? Because the whole point is that you can take on like multiple clients. You know, you can do a bunch of different jobs. So, you know, maybe you don't have, like, for example, you have one, if you work in-house, you have one client the whole year, right? So, you know, you have the one, which is fine. But if you, let's say, work freelance, you know, maybe you have 2 clients for, you know, January, February, but then you have 0 clients in March, right? So between the 3, you know, you still have the 1 client or whatever, you know, or for January, February, you still have 1 client for 1 month. And then, you know, it's kind of like, it can balance out. I'm not saying it does, because you can have more, you can also have less. But it just depends on like how you kind of want to go about things, right? If you, I guess, have trouble kind of finding work, it's not a fun time by any means. It really isn't, because it's kind of like getting hired like multiple times a month. You know what I mean? Like you have to go through interviews every single time. It's not an interview, right? But we're just, you know, you're having meetings in terms of like, are you a fit for the project, which is basically just an interview. You know what I mean? And so that's terrible. Not terrible, but it's not as fun as you might believe. It's a lot of like trying to show them that you're worth something, you know, and there's, you know, all sorts of like different hoops and stuff that you have to jump through, but you know, is it worth it or not? I don't know, you know. It just depends on what you want to do as an artist, you know what I mean? So that dappled light, I hate it. I hate that front section. It's terrible. Let's get rid of that. Actually, what I'm gonna do is this, because I'm like fighting it. It's really odd, you know. So I'm gonna get rid of it here, but I have the layer, right? So this is something I do a lot. So if you're ever like, I don't really like know if I like this or not, just get rid of it, move it to the bottom, like underneath everything, like, you know, behind the sky essentially, right? And then just leave it alone. Don't worry about it, you know. Just leave it, you know. If you like it, you can bring it back. If you don't, fuck it, you know, it's gone. And it's just like, you can kind of play with this idea, because I do like the idea of her going into a darker area. Like there is dappled light, but also like, you know, this place is not cool by any means, you know? Oh, maybe it's like a little bit brighter. Maybe the water needs to be brighter. That actually helps a lot. There you go. That's what I'm talking about. Brainstorming. Teamwork makes the dream work. Look at that. Dude, hold up. That's why. Brad says, also random question, but are you qualified for unemployment? If you're still working for brainstorming and doing mentorships, you wouldn't, right? Yeah, no, I think there's a certain qualification, right? Because I do everything through my business. So I'm like, you know, if you own a business, I don't think you're like qualified for unemployment. You know what I mean? So I don't know exactly how that works. I've never like truly looked into it. I mean, I could be leaving a lot of cash on the table, right? No, I wouldn't do that. That's terrible. It's if you're taking unemployment, if you're employed and taking unemployment, I just want to say right now, you probably shouldn't be doing that. Not for legal things. Screw the government. It's just the idea of like somebody else needs that, you know? And it's like, you know what I mean? So I wouldn't do that, but that's just me. I don't know. Maybe I'm not that smart. I don't know. All right, cool. We'll stop messing with this. Right, so pretty basic idea, right? Really nothing that crazy. Looking at these images, right? You could do the same thing for all of these, and I definitely maybe not all of these, right? Maybe I'll do a different kind of set, right? But the whole idea is this: we're trying to create images that actually mean something in the end, right? It's actually something that. Oops, let me grab my sky. Hold up, there it is. Pop. You know what I mean? We're trying to create images like this one's actually kind of cool. I might take this further. Maybe I'll do it right now. Hold up. Let's see. Should I do that? Yeah, let's just do it. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's just like just taking these images and just taking them to like a graphic read level, right? You don't really need to know everything about the scene. I don't even care about the setting right now. All I know is there's trees, there's a hill, and she's walking down it. She's trying to figure this out, right? So just understanding that, you know, we're just keeping it very chill. Whenever you're doing this, if you are following along, for those in the live stream plus, or even just people following along at home, just kind of understand that this initial section, we just want the main ideas that are kind of happening. We just need the general kind of ideas, and then from there, you know, we'll kind of make things better, right? So, but I'm gonna spend the rest of this time probably doing another one, to be honest. Still got about 15 minutes left, so. Dang, Discord chat's been quiet. We're missing some key players that liven it up. Boom, grid. Yes, grid. All right. So I'm just gonna kind of start setting this one up, but yeah, same idea, right? It's the same kind of general things that we've talked about. Nothing really that crazy happening here. So let's see. Oh, yeah, cool. Should darken that down. Yes, that's cool. All right. Maybe her path is like less straight. Oops. Let's go, dude. Well, pro tip. Get good at using lasso tool. It's everything, dude. If you've ever seen me paint before in my like classes and stuff, it's like it just saves time. I think the biggest thing about it too is like I like that I'm able to kind of just block out things quickly and the edges are like sharp, you know? Because you know when you use a brush and stuff, it just you kind of get all those textures if you're using a chalk brush or something. And you get a lot of things that are like, you know, they just don't really, I guess, help your images that much. You know, it does a lot of like it just kind of gets in the way. And then when it comes to like cleaning things up, it's a nightmare because now you have all these like transparency issues and all those things. So, you know, just you know, cut out the middleman and just use the lasso tool, right? You don't have to go back and like fix things over and over again, you know. So, boom. Let's see. So like I like these like imposing shapes, you know. I like these like you know, these big kind of bar shapes, right? Because what we talked about before kind of feels like she's trapped, right? And so what we're trying to do here is represent those ideas, right? We still want, you know, even though they're trees, right? We understand that, you know, they're physically trees, but the graphic read that's being created, right, are bars, right? It's like a cage. And on top of that, we're on a hill. So like the cool part about it is we get these like cool sharp shapes at the bottom of the tree. Because we're on a hill, the perspective of the hill is kind of going like this, right? It's kind of like sloping down. So the base of the tree gets that kind of like sharper kind of feel. And it feels almost like a jaw, or it feels like teeth, you know what I mean? And like, you know, and it kind of naturally kind of points at the character. So little things like this where, you know, maybe I didn't intend that when I first started, right? But it is something that you want to kind of see and understand about your images. That way you can kind of maintain that read, or you can like, you know, not miss it. You know what I'm saying? So little things like that really do go a long way. Let's see. Boom. Nope, not that color. Sick. Look at that. Within seconds, bro. Within seconds. Which one's closer? That one's closer. Boop. Easy peasy. All right, so from here, I'm just gonna start adding characters, adding just a little bit of lighting, right? I'm not like, what I don't want you to think about, right, when we're doing this, you know, and when it's your, whenever you're kind of, you know, approaching this assignment, right? Try not to like, I guess, focus too much. Like if there's a general idea that needs to happen, where you're like, oh yeah, there's the kind of lighting here, right? There's something, you know, like dappled light in the forest or something very specific, you know, like do it, right? But just understand that, you know, you don't have to kind of really commit to an idea quite yet, right? Because really what we're doing is, it's a lot of placeholders. We're kind of done when we get to this phase right here, but, you know, we're still gonna, you know, do stuff with it. We're still gonna, next week, we'll kind of adjust a lot of things to make these not just look good, but also play better like together, right? So I'm just gonna adjust these values real quick. Something like that. That's actually a lot better. I was saying like green, kind of grassy, kind of hill type thing. So, or mossy, because that reference from the references that I pulled earlier, there's a lot more green. So I wanted that ground to feel darker. And this way, we have a kind of lighter, a lighter approach on the character, or a lighter background on the character. So it feels like she's kind of silhouetted just a little bit harder. There's more contrast here now than there was like a second ago, right? So. And like, I like the fact that like when we see this, we're like, you know, there's two like bars, you know, kind of blocking our way, 3 bars, or really 4, right? Kind of blocking our way. So really the whole idea is we're like trying to visually stop her from going that way, because she's going to want to eventually like kind of turn this way, or, you know, around that tree, wherever she goes. But the whole point is, you know, there's a lot of like obstacles in her way, right? There's the whole story point of she's being kind of watched and stalked, right? Cool. Let's see. Make a levels layer. I'm gonna kind of do the same thing I did a second ago with the dappled light, but I kind of want like some like raking light. So maybe like this is like morning or something, right? Where maybe maybe she's like, I don't know, walking through the forest early in the morning, and we get like that nice kind of like, you know, raking light that goes across. You know what I mean? That'd be kind of cool. But like adding to that striped nature of what's happening, you know? Maybe that's too much. I'll fix it in a second. Dude. And so something that's happening, right? So whenever I do this, right now, this is, I guess, a more advanced idea, but right now we kind of have things separated in terms of materials, right? Because we have a road, we have like grass or, you know, moss, rock, and then we have trees, right? So 3 different kind of values happening there. So it's kind of separated in terms of material. When I bring this in, and the same thing happened with the dappled light earlier, we kind of ran into this problem of like, there's too much information. There's a lot of things happening. And so really what I have to do now is kind of start deciding where some of these things go. And this is why I like to work in the same layer, because check this out. I have my, my road as the same kind of like, I guess, value that I had before. When I throw the lights on, right, I kind of run into this issue of like, well, the light's really strong, but my road is still like very prominent. And it's like, it's a little weird because, you know, I'm getting like, I don't know, you get like multiple reads on the value grouping. So you get a lighting value grouping, and then you get the local value grouping, right? And so you have to fix that, right? Because if you just allow it to just be like that, you know, it just doesn't work as well, right? So what I have to do is I'm going to take this this ground plane, right? I'm going to duplicate this light into it and then drop it in. And so now I have the ability to control how light some of those like road paths are versus how dark they are, right? Is it this way? This needs to go here. There you go. That's what I wanted. Wait, what happened? Okay, we're good. Yeah. This needs to be the opposite. And I need to grab this, darken that back down. And you know, I can like make this part of the road like darker so we see less in the shadows. So I'm crunching the shadows. You see how like the detail of the shadows is gone, but then the light, you can still see the path. Or I can do the opposite of that, right? Where I leave the contrast in the shadows, right? And I kind of get rid of the contrast in the lights. So in this case, I need to hit that grass portion down here. I'm gonna take this light path, boom, drag that into there. All right, I need to lighten up this ground just a little bit. Oops, hold up. Same thing. Nope, just kidding. Just need to get that layer. Boom, 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 boom. Am I doing it right? There it is. So like now I can like grab that that light and start crunching that. You can see the difference. Like it's already pretty close, so that's why it's looking okay. But you can see the difference between, I guess, trying to get that value grouping to work a little bit better. So you just kind of have to understand that. I'll show you how that kind of plays into effect when we start like rendering and stuff. But just as for right now, just kind of understand that that is a thing. That is something that you do have to like understand about what's going on, right? So I'll get rid of some of those lights over there. Boom. Don't need to worry about these so much. I think we're good. Dope, dude. Sick. All right. Let me see if I can darken this ground plane down just a bit. Nope. So I do like the lights kind of blowing out. I want the ground to. We're basically exposing for shadow because the camera's in shadow, so I want to still see shadow. Kind of makes a little more sense. Let's see. Boom. I think we're almost there. Let's see. Start adding some effects. Boom. Soft light. Boom. Airbrush. All right. Oopsies. Where's my brush? There it is. Boom. Put these behind the first row of trees. And then just stretch it out, baby. Let's go. So I'm just trying to work on like just a little bit of that lighting, but nothing really crazy. We'll focus on like how we make these like actually work, like what they actually mean in the next week. But for now, it's like there's a general understanding of like there's a light scenario here, and there's a light scenario here, right? It's kind of what we're looking for. We'll finesse things. We'll make it look better a little bit later. But for now, just understand that, you know, we're doing things on purpose, right? So nothing here is really an accident, right? So, all right. So with this in mind, just recapping what we have here, right? We have red square, green background, right? Because that's really what's happening here. We have a small little girl or boy, whichever we decide to do, right? And they're sitting in a sea of green, essentially, compositionally speaking, right? So now I have this composition, and obviously we're gonna, you know, make things like there's the variations of green. There's gonna be light and all sorts of things. But at the end of the day, when I'm doing this, right, it's a very simple idea: small square, big canvas, right? And then same thing over here, right? I didn't map out the green, but it's the same composition. It's the same general point of view, right? Because whenever I have this, you know, it's still a small square. So she's still very, she's still a lot less significant in her scene compared to others, right? Like compared to like, you know, the surrounding kind of elements, right? So if I did this, oops, boom, and then grab that green again, something like that. Boom, right? Same idea. It's very simple, it's very direct, but you know, when we want to understand what this character is doing, right? This is the very basic form of that. We'll make this more sophisticated, but just understand that I do have a story point, right? Character doing a thing, and she's in danger. There's a wolf watching her or some sort of creature, right? And we'll address some of those designs a little bit later. But for now, it's like, you know, just understand it's a very simple idea, but we're just trying to execute it, understand the main idea before we kind of move on. You know what I'm saying? So if there's any questions on this, let me know. For those participating in the homework, you know, whenever you find your story, you know, try to make sure you keep it as simple as possible. We're not writers. We're not, you know, I guess paid to kind of do that in a studio setting. So you don't really have to worry about making something like super like dynamic and crazy and something that's like, you know, I guess super thought out. So what I do recommend doing, you know, find a story to reference from, right? Or if you have a story already kind of in your head, just keep it simple. It's not the whole story. It's just one part of it. What she's basically by the end of this, she's going to start kind of walking, and then she's going to get to the encounter, right, with the wolf. Maybe there might be a fight. I haven't decided quite yet, but it's just like her walking down the street, essentially, you know, walking down the road. And I'll kind of make this road look cool. We'll paint it up, make it look all sick. But for now, right, this is the main idea. This is the image in its most basic form. And if your image at the very least looks good here, right, chances are it's gonna look good when you bring it into 3D or do whatever you want. You know what I'm saying? So, but with that in mind, it's 9 o'clock. We're done for the day. So, pretty simple ideas, you know, just keep it loose. I recommend trying not to paint too much, right? Like, you know, there's a lot of doodling that I was doing in like the first comp. And ultimately, like, it didn't really lead anywhere, you know. Ultimately, I got rid of a lot of it, you know, but the simpler reads tend to do a little bit better. So just keep it simple, do a lot, right? Find your comp. If you have some good comps that link up together really nicely, think about that screen direction that we were talking about before, and think about the story that's kind of being told. And hopefully, you know, it's going to turn out pretty good. So with that in mind, I just want to announce a couple different things. So this month we're doing color keys, just like we talked about. If you'd like to sign up for feedback, right, join my Discord. You can find it in my links, just in my link tree in the about section, or look me up on Instagram and look at my link tree there. You know, you can sign up for the Livestream Plus membership role in there. Right, just go to the top of the Discord. There's a server shop, and you can, you know, do all that. Next thing, right? If there's anything I said here that is really, you know, helpful for you, and you're not doing any of the live stream stuff, and you'd like to contribute in some sort of way, you know, I have a coffee account. So if you'd like to buy me a coffee, you know, send it in there. It's in my links as well. And I also opened a print shop. So I do prints, right? I made some deconstructed Game Boys. They're like part of my childhood and probably a part of a lot of yours. There's gonna be more stuff coming for sure. But yeah, I just announced it yesterday. So there's international shipping and everything like that. So if you'd like to buy some prints, they're on sale right now, 30% off. So with that in mind, you know, I just want to thank everybody that participates in the Livestream Plus, or everybody that just participates in general or just watches in general, right? You know, this is hopefully helpful in some sort of way. I want this to be something that, you know, I don't see a lot of content covering, I guess, higher level thinking or general, I guess, higher level understanding. There's a lot of like process and a lot of like technique that's kind of talked about. But I kind of want to, you know, just talk about some things that professionals actually do and how we actually approach things in a professional setting, right? So, but hopefully this helps somebody. If not, then I don't know. I don't know what to tell you, man. You know. So with that in mind, guys, thanks so much for watching, and yeah, I'll see you next week. Peace.